All right. Hey, Brad, how you doing?
Good, Danny. How are you?
Awesome. Welcome to the show.
Excited to be here.
Yeah, it's exciting. We kind of communicated a little bit, and I know Josh on the team and some of the other people on the team saw you had posted, I think it was on Instagram, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Brad had posted a picture of himself having a cold one, talking about how nice it was to have, what was it, a deal came through or a lead came through or something?
It was the automated follow-ups, and someone was responding to one, and I got the notification while I'm sitting out in my zero gravity chair in the driveway watching the kids.
Yeah, that's cool. And so we saw that he had posted that, and so we sent him over some Texas beer, and we found out how difficult it was to mail beer, especially because it was in bottles too. It's like, oh, it's got to be in bottles.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, it doesn't have to. It's better to not be in bottles when you ship it, but we wanted to send you bottles because,
right.
For some reason, that was the big thing with the picture. It was like, why is he drinking Modelo out of a can?
I don't know. I've always done cans. I don't
care about the difference, but Josh thought it was like, he's like, why is he drinking out of a can? So anyway, we sent you the beer and some swag and stuff.
I know why. Because I have a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old, so glass bottles will get broken.
Oh, yeah. That's a good point. That's what I said. I said, maybe he was by his pool or something. I mean, whatever. But the kids, that's another place to keep that glass away from. Right. But let's get started with how you got started, when you got started, and what sparked this fascination's interest in getting into house flipping.
Yeah, so I mean, if you rewind way back to like 2005-ish, I started watching all those shows on TV, all the flipping shows kind of before the crash, and I read a couple books, and I always wanted to do it. And then I got the idea in 2007. At that time, I was only 21. I'm a young guy.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, hey, I'm going to buy a house, because they were giving out mortgages to anybody who could breathe, right? And I'm going to buy a house. I'm going to live in it for like 2 years, and I'm going to sell it for more money, and then we'll just keep doing that, right? So I bought a house in October of 2007. And it was a new construction house, and then the builder went under, and then I stared at empty lots for years. I finally sold that house for almost what I paid for it in 2015. So I was there a lot longer than I expected, but that was kind of what got me started. But in about, I guess it was like 2014-ish, I started kind of wanting to get back into it. And I found podcasts, and I think the first podcast to listen to was the Bigger Pockets podcast. A lot of people get started with that one. Which one?
Which one?
The Bigger Pockets podcast.
I haven't
heard. And then FlippingJunkie came after that.
Yeah, I've heard of that one.
Right. And then I found this book on Kindle. So Flipping Houses Exposed, right?
Oh yeah, that's a good book. I like that one.
Yeah. So you just got into podcasts at that point. And, I was working a corporate job, and just, on my drives anywhere, I was listening to podcasts. And then probably around 2015, I started going to like RIA meetings, and then still didn't really do anything, right? Just went to meetings for a year. And then finally in 2016, I got serious. And in April 2016, I set up my LLC. I set up a website with you guys through Lead Propeller, and I ordered my first round of direct mail, and I was off to the races, right?
Nice.
So that was about middle of 2016. And then I didn't even get my first deal until we finally signed the contract in like October of 2016. And then
how many months was that? What month did you start everything?
So I sent out my first round of direct mail like right at the beginning of May. It was a really, really, really small list. And I didn't get any responses until the second round. I had a guy call me, had a bunch of rental properties and wanted to sell some. I mean, I was only mailing like 350 mail pieces to a very targeted list. The funny story though, a deal came around a year later from my very first round.
That's
and
awesome.
It was an amazing deal. But anyway, so that's kind of what got me started. There was in about 2016, I got serious and was still working full time through all of 2017. And then I quit my corporate job in January of this year in 2018.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thanks. It's a good feeling not having to deal with cubicle hell.
I want to delve into that, like how you felt throughout that whole thing, the planning of it, separating from the job, because that's a big deal. But let's go back to the beginning part of your story of getting the house to live in, because that's actually one of the first properties. And I don't ever call it my first flip because we didn't sell it until a couple of years later. So I always forget that one. But the first house I bought was a HUD home to live in and fix up. And so it was doing the same thing. But it sounds like, so you wanted to buy a house and then flip it, and you bought a new construction. Going back, what would you tell yourself now that you know more about real estate investing and flipping and stuff? What kind of things would you tell your past self to do differently on that first one?
I was having a conversation with my little sister about this the other day. She's, in her late 20s, and she's single and has no kids, and she's a nurse. And I said, you need to go buy a fourplex, and you need a house hack, and you need to live in a unit, and you need to rent it out, and I'll tell you how to do it. My buddy lives near you in Jacksonville, Florida, and he will help you find them because he does multifamily.
Oh, cool.
That's how I would redo my life again, is go back and house hack if I knew then what I know now. So.
Right. Yeah, get a deal that you can improve upon, a house that you can improve to increase the value and all that kind of good stuff. Yeah. Yep. Well, great. So when you got serious in 2016 and you started doing those things, what clicked for you? Was there a point where things started to really make sense? Like you said you sent out, like, that first batch of mailers was like 300 pieces.
Yeah.
And then you sent it out to the same list after that, and you said you ended up getting a deal. But those months in between, what was that like? Because I'm sure there was that whole, anxiety of, am I going to actually find a property that I can buy at a cheap enough price?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and if we go back to like 2015 and stuff, I started looking at stuff on the MLS. I have a relative who's a real estate agent, so I had her sending me deals, and I was making offers on stuff. And all the podcasts I listened to said, you need to be making offers. You need to be making offers, taking action. And also during 2015, my first son was born in January of 2015. So he was still really little. And then so once he was about a year old, things get easier as they get a little older. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. I got to take some action. And yeah, you get a little, I guess, disheartened or whatever. I was getting phone calls, and I went on some appointments or whatever, but nothing really solid until that first deal that was like, he called me and said, hey, I've got a few rental properties. Let's try this one first. And then, so.
Nice. So what was that like, going from making offers on listed properties to motivated seller marketing, direct to seller marketing? What got you to take that transition?
Well, part of it was that in about 2000, I don't remember what year it was. I think it was 2015. Like, a lot of the hedge funds came into Atlanta and literally just sucked up all the inventory off the MLS. So there was nothing. I mean, I was making offers on stuff, but there were no more HUD houses, no more foreclosures. There was just nothing. So I decided, okay, well, I'm going to go this route. And I had heard it on podcasts, and everyone talked about, direct to seller. And I mean, I love it now, right? Because it's a much easier, cleaner process. I got my real estate license last year just to help out with stuff, but I hate dealing with real estate agents for the most part. I despise it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's a lot quicker just to go straight to the person making decisions and not having somebody
right
right in the middle of it, messing things up a little bit. And not that all of them do it, but
yeah,
extra stuff.
Much cleaner.
How was it for you on those first calls and appointments directly with sellers? I mean, did you struggle with that, or was that something that kind of came a little bit more naturally to you?
I mean, I was scared to death. I mean, like, I don't think I was as scared as you and throwing the phone to my wife, but I was scared. I didn't know what to say, but fortunately for me, when I was like in college, and I did telemarketing and I did customer service, so like my phone skills are good. I know how to talk to people on the phone. So, and I just kind of. And I still do this today. I make everything just very conversational, just build a lot of rapport and just talk to them, So although now I'm not really on the phones as much anymore now that I have a leads manager and acquisitions manager and all that stuff. So
nice, moving quick.
yeah.
I like it. So what were those first appointments like? Did that phone ability over the phone also translate to you meeting with them at their homes, or what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, you talk to them over the phone, you get kind of gauge a little bit of motivation, and then if you feel like they're motivated, then you go out on the appointments. And obviously in the beginning, you're going on a lot more appointments than you really need to, but it's really just getting practice and kind of walking around houses and making it seem like you're a super experienced investor when you're not, right?
Yeah, I know what that's like. I guess, I mean, maybe the fact that you had done some made offers on listed properties, you probably walked through quite a few properties that were in,
Right.
that were run down, needed a ton of work. So was that, you think that helped you?
Yeah, and I had already kind of done a lot of kind of remodeling work on the side. I did a lot of work to even my other house was a new construction house. I like literally redid everything in it, and then worked on other people's like friends' houses. And I was always, and growing up, I was a DIYer. My parents were always doing projects. I mean, I knew how to do tile when I was like 12.
Oh, wow.
So I knew how much stuff costs and what is involved in remodeling work, and I had a lot of family in the trades and stuff. So I knew that part wasn't, it was more of like figuring out like the negotiation piece, and then like that piece was kind of all new. So
what do you think helped you get that piece down?
Just podcasts and books, and practice,
What are your favorite methods for negotiating?
Well, so now I am a firm believer in John Martinez's stuff. His stuff is gold. So anyone who hasn't bought that should buy his stuff. It's gold. So yeah, but back then it was, I mean, I was reading books like, Never Split the Difference, and how to getting to yes, and no, getting past no, and all these negotiation books and stuff, and just trying to find a kind of common ground with everyone. So
yeah. And so now that you have an acquisitions manager that goes on appointments, do you ever go on any appointments anymore?
I still do sometimes when he's busy, or because he kind of I live pretty far north of Atlanta, and I'm about 40 miles north of Atlanta, but we focus on the entire Atlanta metro area. So, and he lives down closer to the city. So if there's ever like stuff that's up here really close to my house, I'll still go on those appointments. Or anything like up in the North Georgia mountains, I'll go on those, because that's just, I don't want him to have to drive that far and stuff. And so occasionally I'll go on some, or if, he's booked up for a day and, we've got to go on this appointment today.
Yeah. Walk me through what the typical appointment is for you. Like when you're walking through and talking with the seller, what is explain just in detail, just for people out there that maybe haven't experienced it yet, or hesitant to do that. What's a typical walkthrough for you? And then the communication, how does it build up to that negotiation, and how does that go?
It's funny you say that. I was just preparing a presentation. I'm helping out a buddy of mine with a little kind of boot camp course this weekend. And I'm putting together a workshop on, finding deals and converting leads and stuff. So I just did all this the other day. So it's all fresh in my head.
Nice. Perfect timing.
Yeah.
We didn't plan this either. So.
Right. No, we didn't. I think I reached out to you like yesterday or the day before or something. So, so, we'll show up and just talk to them. And what I usually do is I walk in the door, and, we've obviously already talked on the phone, and then we'll say, hey, we're going to come out tomorrow at 12 or, whenever it was. And so we'll walk around, and I'll just say, hey, show me around the house. Tell me a little bit about the house. And I just kind of let them, really with anything, they need to be doing a heck of a lot more talking than you. You just need to listen, right? And just let them tour around, and they'll tell you everything about the house and this and that. And, you just kind of observe things, and you ask them a few questions like, oh, okay, how old's the roof, or whatever. I mean, a lot of that's somewhat irrelevant when it comes to the negotiation, but I mean, when it comes to your budget, yeah, that's relevant. I already kind of know what I'm going to replace before I go in and look at it. I'm just letting them talk and tell me stuff. And then we'll kind of go around, and then we'll come back, and what I'll do is I'll kind of just sit down with them for a little bit and just build some rapport, just chat about whatever, you notice a picture in the house. Oh, you went to this place. Oh, we go there too. Or, or I grew up around here or there.
Yeah, that's huge. And that part just of taking the time to stop and sit down and not just be all business straight into
right.
like, here's what it is.
Yep. Yeah. And that's my personality too. Like I'm totally like laid back, just conversational. I mean, now that I'm not in corporate America anymore, I wear like a hat every day, and I am who I am, and I don't try to be someone I'm not. So when I meet with sellers, it's the same way. Just be conversational, just be a real person. They just want a real person there to talk to, So
that's gold right there. And if people hear that and think, yeah, of course, I want you to, like anybody listening, to stop and think about that, because I think a lot of us do try to go in and, try to find the way we're expected to act, trying to imagine what would get the sale done. What would cause us to get the deal if we acted or said something in a certain way.
Right.
And it sounds like you were a lot like how I was when I'd go to those appointments. You just go in, and I'm not going to even concern myself with any of that. Like, I'm just going to talk to them,
right,
like I would anybody else, and not be concerned about losing or winning that deal.
Right. Yeah. Then that's that like desperation piece, and you're going to, I forget which one it is, like one of the books about frame control or something. When you're desperate, you just lost your frame. They've got the frame now, and you don't want that. So if you don't have anything to lose, you already have some ground there from a negotiation perspective, because you don't have to buy that house.
You're not being pushy, or they're not feeling like you're trying to push them to make that decision so quick.
Right, exactly. So, but I mean, we still follow kind of the process, and then, we'll, address deal killers and all that stuff. I'm not going to go into too much depth, but,
well, why don't you?
And then I wait and I do my pictures. What I like to do is I do my pictures and my photos, like after I've already talked to them and built some rapport and we've talked for a while, and say, hey, I need to run around and take some pictures. And I usually do like a little narrated video. Do you mind if I go do that real quick? And they've already showed me the house. I know where everything is. And then I just go around and then they just hang out for a little bit. It takes 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I'll go outside. And then I'll say, hey, I'm going to go out to the truck and just kind of run some numbers, and I'll be back in about 5 minutes or so, 10 minutes. And I go outside and just kind of dilly-dally in the truck for a few minutes. And I kind of already knew when I got to the appointment what the house is worth. I was just kind of confirming my rehab numbers and all that at that point. And then
it's good.
I know my offer.
Yeah, it's good to go out and at least pretend like you're crunching a bunch of numbers, right? Because it's, right. I think, whenever I would just throw a number really quick, I think people would see that as like, well, that's kind of like, did you even, just, right. What's this based on? You just kind of threw a number out there without really doing any calculations. Don't you need, I don't know. It just felt like it was always better to go, say you're going out to your office, right? And they say, okay. And then you say, well, my car is my office. Let me get in the AC real quick and do that. But
right. Yeah. Here in Georgia in the summertime. Yeah. You're going to sit in the AC for a little bit.
And that's probably more the reason, right? Let me get out there and get the AC.
Yeah. And some appointments is going out there to get all the fleas off of you and stuff like that.
Oh man, I don't miss that at all.
Oh man. I don't, I had an appointment a few weeks ago, 2 houses in a row, both had fleas. And then like 2 days later, this house I bought and closed on it, I showed up over there, and I don't remember the fleas from when I was on the appointment, but then I walked in and they were all over my legs. I was like, dang it. Yeah. Called the pest control company. Hey, come spray. So
it's kind of weird how a house goes vacant and then it explodes. That population of fleas explodes.
Yeah. And it had been forever since she had pets there, the lady, and all of a sudden there's fleas. But it took 2 treatments, but my pest control company comes out and sprays it. They do 2 sprays as part of their treatment. It always knocks it out. So. But anyways, yeah. So we'll do that, and then I'll come back and I'll come back and say, okay, well, here's what I can do on the house, and kind of one negotiation tactic is I always kind of throw out a very odd number, right? Because people see the even numbers as you just throwing something out. So I'll say, I can do 153, 400, and then they'll counter, and then you kind of reduce your increments as you gotta
make it even more odd than that, though. It's got to be. I don't remember. Yeah, but like saying $42,363.
Yeah,
and 15 cents.
I don't ever do cents, but I'll do like $433 or something.
Yeah, I never did cents either. But.
Yeah. But so that's what I do on the appointments. And then obviously, my acquisitions guy does that now, and kind of,
So you're saying you made that offer and then they come back. You doing something where it's like you don't meet them in the middle and you just reduce how much you're coming down each time so they see it sort of coming to an end? How is that?
Right. And then I'll throw out like non-monetary concessions, right? Like, hey, well, you know what? You can leave this junk behind, even though I was already factoring that in my budget to begin with. Hey, you can leave all this stuff behind. Just take out what you want. And how about we do that? Or, we'll reimburse you for your moving expenses. I just wrote a check today to a lady for like $600. I paid for movers.
Wow, that's a good one. I don't know that I've heard that one.
So just a lot of, I guess they are monetary in the end, but like to them, they seem non-monetary. And just that way they think you show that you're giving on something, right? But it's not dollars. So
Well, I think some of that too has a psychological effect, right? Because even if you maybe were a little bit higher, but people are saying, but yeah, he's going to pay moving expenses. And in my mind, that might mean several $1,000s.
Yep.
But
now, the only thing I'll
like
say
600.
on moving expenses is set a ceiling because I had a lady earlier this year use the U-Haul truck to just be her personal vehicle. And she put like, the U-Haul bill was like $1,700.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah. For a $20 U-Haul, turned out to be $1,700.
She brings a U-Haul over to you to pick up the check too. You're like, hey, what are you doing? Still driving that thing around?
I got the bill from U-Haul and I was like, holy crap.
That's funny.
At that point, what do you do?
Yeah. So you had mentioned before when you're talking to the seller about these deal killers, and then you kind of like stopped. Is there something? What did you mean by the deal killers? So
that's kind of part of Martinez's training, right? It's figure out all the things that could potentially kill the deal. Is there does the husband, or the sister-in-law going to be upset that they're moving? Is there are other heirs involved? Is there we got one deal we're working on right now, and we got it under contract, and then she's getting cold feet on it. So the hang up on that point was that she didn't want to sell the house with the tenant. She didn't have the heart to tell the tenant she's selling it. So she's kind of weirded out about dealing with the tenant because the lady's been there for 10 years. She's never raised rent on her in 10 years. But that's really the deal killer there is the tenant, that psychological piece of the tenant. So you got to address a lot of that, like throw them out there. Is this going to be a problem, or do you have any other decision makers that need to be here, maybe that aren't on title but still are decision makers, that sort of thing, or does your mother need to be there, or whatever.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, so they don't have something to say where they can just ignore the negotiation because it's like, hey, I got to take this to so-and-so, so we'll call you. You
right.
Kind of avoid that, right?
And getting them back on the phone is next to impossible. And, so, yeah.
Oh, great point. And when we had first started talking, when you were telling your story, you had said at the beginning of this year, right, 2018, the beginning of this year,
yep,
you had gone full time. So let's delve into that.
Sure.
I'm sure from the beginning you probably were planning that, hey, I want to go full time at some point soon.
I've always been an entrepreneur. No, I kind of got burned out on corporate life many years ago, but I was making good money, and it's like those golden handcuffs, right? Where you're like, wait, I'm going to quit this job that gives me a steady paycheck and pays me 6 figures a year and blah blah blah, and it's just like, okay, it's kind of scary. And for my wife, that's scary. That's another. I would have quit a long time ago if wasn't married and had kids. Now I kind of have to involve her in that decision. And I think it was about, I don't know, halfway or 3/4 of the way through last year, after I had closed out a lot of deals, and I, she was convinced that I could do it. And I said, all right, I'm going to stay through the end of this year so that I get my bonus for next year, which ended up turning out I didn't get my bonus because they had a little loophole that said if I wasn't employed on the day of the payout in April, that I wouldn't get it. So I ended up not getting the bonus. So I stayed
probably
around.
Got more than that from a deal you did from being full time, though, I'm sure, right?
Right. Yeah. It would have been a nice bonus, and then and then my wife didn't get her bonus. We were counting on some of that money too. She didn't get her bonus because that company did terrible that year before, and anyways, but you figure it out, right? At the end of the day, you jump jump ship and you figure it out, you know, because you got a fire lit under you. And that's kind of what happened. So in January, I said, all right, I'm going to do it. I gave my boss like a month notice. It was in the middle of December, and he already knew, like, I had been doing deals, and, you know, so he knew, and he got on to me a few times about that. So,
So what were you doing? What was the job?
So the last company I was with was a like mobile device cell phone insurance company. My entire career, I did like fraud investigations and fraud data analysis and stuff, just catching bad guys for years. Worked for major banks and wireless carriers, and I mean, it was fun because it was always something new. You were investigating fraud and identity theft. Like, I mean, I was doing like big cases, like, you know, stuff that the feds were investigating. We took down some pretty big fraud rings and stuff. So I was doing that, and you know, I was good at it, but I was just kind of burned out on it. It wasn't exciting for me anymore. So,
so what point in your house flipping did you feel comfortable? Like, what was there a moment where you're like, okay, I've been able to be consistent in getting this number of deals over this many months, or what was that deciding factor? Was it just a gut feeling?
It was, you know, all right, I can do this, right? I got this figured out. You know, in 2017, while I was working full time, I closed out 7 deals that year. I could have done a lot more, but the job kind of started getting in the way. And that was another reason. The job was getting in the way. I couldn't go on appointments except on the weekends. And as you know, especially with web leads, right? And I grew to kind of love, I was doing pay-per-click, and you guys managed that for me. And the reason I picked that, albeit it's expensive, but it was easier for me to manage that lead flow by myself and still work a job, because there's less leads, but they're better quality. So you don't have to answer calls all the time and go through all that crap. So you got to go on those appointments ASAP. You know, those people are reaching out to 6 other people online when they're reaching out to you. So
better leads are typically where they're ready to go. Like they want to be done with the house.
I even did a few like sight unseen over the phone while I was in the break room at work, made them an offer and DocuSigned them a contract just so I could lock it up, you know?
Yeah, nice.
Because the guy was like, hey, I want this for the property. And I ran my numbers and I was like, I'll give him what he wants and there's still room. So yeah, all right, I'll do it. Let me send you a DocuSign right now, you know? Did
you put any escape clauses and stuff like that, or what do you?
Yeah, I just have a 7-day due diligence or 10-day or whatever. It just depends on the deal. You know, if it's one I'm pretty confident in and I know I'm going to buy it either way, I'll just do like a 7-day due diligence. Sometimes I'll do 14 days, but I always have the due diligence in my contract. So I don't know. You guys don't do that in Texas, right? You have to do an option, right? Isn't that how that works in Texas?
Yeah, for the, you know, honestly, I don't even know. I mean, we just have, you know, usually we do it just based on an escape clause of something like, you know, funding approval or something.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not really an issue.
I'm also of the opinion that I don't like to put things under contract that I'm not confident in. And maybe I shouldn't do that, but I like to do what I say I'm going to do. I mean, there've been deals where I kind of closed on it and I didn't make as much money as I probably wanted to, but I kept my word with the seller and said, hey, I'm going to buy your house, you know?
And that's huge. That is very big. And people might not think that sometimes that would ever come back to bite them. But just that feeling of, you know, like I'm doing every time, whenever I make an offer, I'm going to close it no matter what. Right. And that's something that my dad had always said too. It's like, if you're making offers, you're going to close them. Like you might lose some, lose some money on them, but you know, you just need to do it because like your reputation as a business is everything. And if you start getting, especially now these days with internet and people being able to post about you on social media or even on your social media and your website and all that kind of stuff, you know, they can tarnish you pretty bad, pretty quick.
And that's why I don't need to go to closings now, but I still do so I can get a testimonial video from them at closing and I put them on a website. I mean, if you look at my page, you guys did a custom layout where I've got like 9 testimonial videos all across right there, you know, so that people see them and people see a lot of value in that, you know?
Yeah.
So
well, if you don't mind, we'll put a link to your website on the show notes page.
Okay. Sure.
Help with SEO too for you. But,
yeah. Well, you guys have been working on that too for a while, and we're literally like at the beginning of page 2 right now, and Atlanta's pretty competitive. So within the next month, we'll be hopping over to page 1. So.
Awesome. So you've seen that progress every month, right? You get those reports.
That's good news. Sorry, I lost the connection. What did you say?
Okay. You guys get those reports every month, so you see that progress of all the keywords every month. I love looking at those.
Yep.
In fact, I look at most of them as they go through. They go through me when they go out to you guys too, so I see them, from the
Yep.
team here that's doing the SEO stuff.
And in fact, that deal I'm telling you about where the lady got cold feet, that was our first organic contract that we've gotten on an organic lead. And she was Googling, she picked up, keyed on one of the blog articles, selling a house with a rental property or taxes on selling a rental property or something. So it was a long tail keyword and it picked up on that. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Start getting more and more of that, especially once you get up to that first page and start moving up.
Yeah, and I've gotten one. I didn't get a deal from it, but I got my first lead from a YouTube video about a month or two ago. Awesome. I started doing YouTube videos on all the different kind of long tail keyword topics, and I got a guy that it said, "Where did you hear about us?" And he said, "YouTube." And I was like, "Yes."
That's awesome, man. YouTube, yeah. I mean, we had a video a long time ago that was really generating a ton of calls. And what it was when Google used to show more of the video results, it was probably right after they bought YouTube or something.
Right.
But they would show them on a lot of the search results, the thumbnail of the video.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was a little bit down the page, but it had the thumbnail. And I was like, oh man, perfect opportunity. They're showing a thumbnail. And so I recorded a video that was just a slideshow, but it was only one slide. And it said, Danny Buys House is real big on it with the phone number, call now.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got that video ranked. And so for those keywords, I was the only display ad on Google because it's all text.
Right.
And you see that thumbnail, it said Danny Buys Houses. That was, while it lasted, it was really awesome
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing with Google. They're always changing their algorithms and stuff. And because like last week, Josh relaunched my pay-per-click stuff, like went back to the drawing board and redid everything. And, just so we could now keep up with the new Google ads and make sure it's scalable in the future. So,
yeah, has a lot to stay on top of. He's doing a great job of that. He's been running our AdWords for forever. I mean, that was the first account he ever got was ours. So, we weren't going to let that not do well. But anyway, Awesome. So you went full-time and what was that like? What was it like having that extra time now? Was that hard?
It's great because you got all the time in the world to focus on deals. Almost sometimes you got too much time and you're like, okay.
That's why you're in the lawn chair drinking a beer.
Right. Yeah. And I probably, don't work, I'm, if you look at my disc, I'm not a very high D. I'm kind of a medium to low D. So like, I probably, don't work as hard as I should. But I work enough where I'm comfortable and I still push myself. And, could I put in like 12 hours a day? Sure. But I also, did this and I said myself this, right after my first son was born, I said, all right, by the time he starts kindergarten, I want to be there to pick him up when he gets off the bus every day. That was a goal of mine. And I did that. Now he's about to turn 4. I take them to, they go to daycare, but I take both of them to daycare every morning and I pick them up in the afternoon. And I'm here. Actually, they're both home sick today. My wife had to work from home today, and I can hear them running around upstairs. But that's why I did this, so I could be there for them when they need me. Because growing up, my mom was an entrepreneur and had her own business, and she was always there. When the school would call, she could come pick us up. So.
Yeah, it's cool. That's awesome to hear that you had that driving you and you stayed true to it. And like you said. But you feel like that's part of your personality too. What is what is your disc like? You've got lower to mid-range D.
I'm a higher I and an S, and then kind of a mid to low C.
So not task oriented either.
No, not at all. My wife is a 99% C.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. She's a project manager by profession and she's awesome at that. And
that makes sense.
So
that makes a lot of sense.
I'm not with detail. Like I'm not a very detail oriented person at all. So I have to, I hired kind of a part-time admin assistant this year and she kind of does a little bit of the weird detail stuff. She only works for me for like 5 or 10 hours a week. Just that's all that she needs to do the, give her some tasks. I actually worked with her at a previous job, and I said, hey, do you want to come work for me part-time? And she works at night or whatever, and I just give her tasks, and she just does them, and I don't have to babysit her.
That's smart. Yeah, delegate it.
Right.
So who's on your team right now? You've got the lead manager acquisitions, and you've got the assistant.
Yeah. So towards the beginning of the year, back in, right after I quit, it was probably like February or March, I hired my first VA. I still have him. He just, I had him part-time for a little while, and then I transitioned to a full-time a few months ago. And he just pulls all the data for all my lists, for all the mailing lists and stuff. So he's going out to the courthouse websites and the different things, and we're requesting files from this place and that place. And he's just putting them all in, he's just building mailing lists and organizing that. And then, that consumes his 8-hour days, and he just builds that. And then we basically just refresh him every 30 to 60 days, depending on the list. So he's always just working on the next thing. So he kind of has a good cadence of, I hate it. My old boss said cadence. I hate the word. Anyway, so he does that. I hired a leads manager just recently, probably she's been on board about a month now. She's a VA in the Philippines, actually. But her English and everything is perfect. She was actually working for another friend of mine who's in mastermind with me, and he didn't need her anymore, and kind of threw her out to a group and said, hey, she's good. Who needs her? So
she's taking calls for you?
She's taking calls. So we have her set up on CallRail with the soft phone, and she kind of answers the calls as they come in. And then I'm also, I use Call Porter for overflow. And basically if she doesn't answer within a certain amount of rings, then it bumps to them, or if it's nights and weekends, it bumps to them. She works opposite hours, so she answers calls during the day, and then she does outbound follow-up calls on all the leads, triages them. Actually, while we're sitting here, I keep getting CallRail notifications on my phone because I told her today that she also needs to be text messaging all these leads for follow-up too, because sometimes people don't respond to calls, but they'll respond to a text. So I just keep getting.
That's a real big tip.
Yeah, sometimes people don't respond to a call, but they'll text you because maybe they're at work or something. So she's been doing a lot of texting, and I keep getting these push notifications on my phone. And then I have what would you say?
Go ahead.
And then an acquisitions guy. I had hired one back in July, and then she quit about 2 weeks into the job, and she had to move out of state, and she didn't want to, leave me on for a month and then quit because her mom was sick in Pennsylvania. Funny story. I actually just bought her house last week. I wholesaled it.
Wow.
She's a real estate agent too. And she didn't want to sell it. She just too much stress of what's going on with her mom. So she sold it to me. And then I was going to actually buy it. And then a friend of mine that I do a lot of deals with, she needed to keep her crews busy. So I just wholesaled it to her.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then I've got, just the admin assistant that she's 5 or 10 hours a week. She just kind of does stuff. I should probably, now that I think about it, I should probably just pay her per job, not hourly, so.
Yeah. And no, it's just great that you found where your weaknesses were and what you do, and have people doing those things to make sure things are operating and giving you the freedom that you want and the reason why you got in the business.
Right. And the leads manager, I should have done it a lot sooner. Cause you get overwhelmed sometimes, and you can't keep up with, especially if you're going out on appointments or whatever, you can't keep up with all the calls and making sure follow-up's getting done, and follow-up is critical. Probably I was doing the numbers, probably 30% of our deals this year were from follow-up, and that should be a lot better. I mean, it should be 40 to 50, I think, but I've put a lot more emphasis on it this year on doing follow-up, because I just
that's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I use the automated stuff through your CRM, and that's awesome. That was what the Instagram post was about.
Nobody remembers the name of the CRM.
Well, REI Mobile.
Yeah, REI Mobile.
I didn't say it because you guys are changing it. So.
Right. Yeah, we're going to FlipPilot's the new one that we're launching. But
yep.
Yeah, you'll love the change in the automation stuff from the new one. But yeah, so very cool. I keep seeing the books behind you though.
Yeah.
And I'm curious. I know it looks like Rich Dad Poor Dad, so they're not just fiction books or anything. We
got Rich Dad Poor Dad.
There we go. Okay. I just wanted to see what your books were up here. You got Traction. Which ones are your favorite up here?
You know what? The one I've been reading lately is How to Be a Great Boss by Gino Wickman. Is an awesome book.
How to Be a Great Boss. Yeah,
it's one of Gino Wickman's books. It's really, really good. I'm not quite, I've already listened to it on audiobook, and now I'm reading it here, and I'm kind of reading it slowly so that I like really take it in. And I kind of have to do that with books. I'll have to read them a few times before they like set in. And then I just started Fierce Conversations on audiobook yesterday. And I always buy a copy and do the audio too. So I have a paper copy or whatever to reference back. But Fierce Conversations is a good one.
What is that one about?
It's about having fierce conversations with your team and being a good leader and recognizing how people interact and how people talk to one another. And I just started it yesterday on audiobook. So a buddy of mine, Brandon Barnes, recommended it. So,
oh, cool.
Yeah. So I've got all the Rich Dad books got me started, right? I read that. And then I think it was The Millionaire Next Door was one of the first ones I read. And then I got into Cash Flow, all the Kiyosaki books, right? It's all about mindset. And then, just more stuff on the different various topics. And then now I'm reading a lot more about, being a leader and a boss, right? Because now I have to manage people and delegate stuff. So.
Yeah, that's big. Yeah, that's cool. It sounds like you've really grown a lot in a short amount of time and done really well.
Yeah, and I love to educate myself. I'm always, back in the day, or I don't do it much anymore, but I was a big forum nerd. Learned everything about cars, wrenching on cars on forums, right? Just reading everything I consume. So I'm always educating myself. I was a very mediocre student. I graduated college with like a 2.7 GPA, but I'm always educating myself constantly, so.
Because it depends on what you're interested in, right? What you're excited about.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So do you have a car that you work on now? Do you have a project?
I don't have time as much anymore. Now I'm a big, like, kind of Toyota truck guy. Like I used to off-road a lot in my old Tacoma. Now I have a big Tundra and it's too big to fit on the trails. But I'm looking at buying in the next few months, I just have to find the right one, an old like 1985 Toyota FJ60, the Land Cruiser kind of wagon.
Oh yeah, cool.
Mid 80s ones with the 4-speed and all that. And I'm going to put a Chevy LS motor in it and all that stuff.
Nice.
And that's my project that I want to do with my boys. So.
Oh, very cool. I'm not very mechanically inclined at all. So I got a really old motorcycle that I wanted to modify and customize. And I don't know if it makes Melissa nervous. I'm sure it does. It makes me nervous. It's like, because you make these mods and then you're going to go out and ride the thing.
Test it.
I'm just wondering, is the wheel going to fly off or?
Well, if it breaks, you know exactly what broke and you fix it. I mean, I used to, we used to put engines in cars that didn't go in cars. I'm a big like import guy. So I used to be into Hondas. I had a turbo Honda. I turbocharged it. And, all my buddies were Nissans, and we built all kinds of crazy, stupid, fast death trap cars, in our younger years.
My friend Steve, he had an old 240Z, I think. Mm-hmm. And I remember I rode with him one day, and it's completely stripped out. I don't even know if I was sitting in a seat. I may have just been sitting in the tub of the car, but there was rust holes. I could see the highway flying by beneath my feet through the rust holes in the floor of the car. But yeah, interesting.
Mm-hmm. It feels faster that way too.
That's why I had it like that, I think, just to show.
You're really only doing 30 miles an hour, but it feels like you're doing 100.
That's good. All right, Brad, I really enjoyed talking with you, and time's up for this episode, but it's been great, finding out your story, finding out more about you and what it was like for you to do this. And it's a really good story because you've made progress and you make it seem easy. Like,
that's not easy. I mean, that's one piece of advice. This is not easy, but you just got to do it. And
right.
Many sleepless nights. I still have sleepless nights. I've learned meditation practices help with that, so.
Yeah. Cool. Do you do the miracle morning or anything like that?
I try to. I just started kind of trying to do it lately, but with the kids in the morning, I basically had to adjust it where I do it after I take them to school because mornings they're up at like 5 a.m. So there's no consistency in my schedule right now to be able to do it.
You want to wake up at 3 o'clock?
No, because I don't get to bed till 9:30 putting them to bed and stuff. So I can't go to bed earlier than what I do. I literally go to bed right after I put my son to bed. So.
Yeah, I'm early to bed now. And we get up at 5. I get up at 5 every morning. And I forgot to set my alarm last night. It was like the first time in years. I forgot to set it and I still woke up. I was exhausted too, so I'm really surprised I even woke up. But Anyway, enough about me waking up. Right. Let's.
Right. But yeah,
Right.
I started trying to do the Miracle Morning, and I still try to do it. I want to be more consistent. And as time goes on, as the kids grow up and get more consistent in their schedules, I'll get more consistent with that. Because my wife leaves for work at 6:00 in the morning to commute to her work. So I'm here by myself with the kids, and I have to take them to school and get them ready and stuff. So
Yeah. Huh. Well, it sounds like a good thing going. And thanks a lot for being on the show. And if anybody out there is listening and wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to do that?
reach out to me on Facebook. I'm Brad Woodall. I mean, if you're part of the real estate stuff, Facebook's algorithm should put you up, show me at the top, right? And then you can email me, brad@arborviewhomebuyers.com. You'll put the link to my website in there. That's a long URL, I know, but yeah, it's just brad@arborviewhomebuyers.com. I'm on Instagram, Brad K. Woodall. So yeah, and then most part, it's mostly just me posting about my kids and stuff, but I do post real estate video. I'll do like Facebook live videos and post, updates on what's going on with real estate.
Yeah.
So
I want to check out your testimonials and stuff on your website. Check out those videos and see those. Those are huge. I mean, just you getting those, like you said, going to those appointments, getting those.
I always do it right at the end of closing. I'll just say, hey, would you guys mind doing like a quick little 10-second video about how it happened? And then I just pull out my phone and I just record it right there and say, hey, we just closed it. How did it go? Oh, it went great, blah, blah, blah. That's all it is. But,
yeah. Very cool. Well, thanks, Brad. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me. Have a good one. We'll see you.